I didn't get Spider-Man 3 when it came out. I was a high school student, desperately trying and failing to figure out what was good, and more importantly to me, what was cool. And Spider-Man 3 at the time was neither of those things. I didn't really enjoy most of the characters, or all of the crying, or the fact that so much of the plot had to do with this dumb misunderstanding between Harry and Peter. Like, duh, your father was stabbed with his own glider. Does Harry think Spider-Man uses a sword, or has his own spider glider? Jesus, that sounds good. Say it to yourself a few times. Spider glider. Like, regardless of why Harry thinks his father was stabbed, it's pretty clear that it was the glider that stabbed him. I don't understand why Bernard telling Harry that Norman was stabbed with a glider is proof that Spider-Man didn't kill him. Nothing is stopping Spider-Man from picking up the glider and just stabbing Norman. And I certainly didn't think Spider-Man 3 was cool, because Peter dances, and while I've come around on quite a few things from the movie, I will not concede that that completely works, because the movie feels two ways about it. On one hand, these women on the street are like, what a dork, but on the other hand, Betty Brant and Gwen and everyone in this jazz club are totally into it. I'm not saying that people can't have different opinions about this world-class first ballot Hall of Fame loser. I just think that tonally, Peter goes from embarrassing to violent pretty quickly. And this doesn't happen until like 2/3 of the way through the movie anyway, so I don't think it really matters. I don't know. But a lot of things in Spider-Man 3 don't work for me. I think we all know that. We've all had that discussion. Also, real quick, there's really no reckoning in the movie for what the symbiote did. Like, did it lower his inhibitions? Were those things he wanted to do? Did it just make him more aggressive? And Peter never really gets to take responsibility for those things that he did. Not with Mary Jane. The movie just sort of ends. Like, read Spider's Shadow by Chip Zdarsky if you want what I would consider a much more satisfying end to a symbiote story. Okay, I'm done beating up on this movie, because there's one part of Spider-Man 3 that pretty much completely works. Sandman. If you watch only the Sandman parts and things related to Sandman, like this conversation between Peter and Aunt May, the movie is pretty good. And it's easy to see why. Sandman is the emotional core of the movie. Flint Marko has a very simple, noble goal that he has gone to great lengths to achieve. In his desperation, he did something terrible, which he regrets. And doing Sandman stuff is the only way Flint believes he can save his daughter. And it isn't like Spider-Man didn't accidentally kill someone in the first movie. Twice. And yeah, those guys were definitely hoisted by their own petard, but Sandman killing Ben was a complete accident. So the characters of Flint and Peter share a lot of experiences with wildly different results. And on the other side, the Sandman action sequences are probably the most fun in the film. The team behind Spider-Man 3 went out of their way to figure out exactly how a Sandman would work. The effects hold up way better than anything else in the movie. I'm not in love with Kaiju Sandman, but the two full Spidey v Sandman fights are so inventive. So yeah, Sandman rules. And yet, spoilers for Spider-Man No Way Home, Sandman was a little weird, right? Not to nitpick, not unlike my podcast, mostly nitpicking, but like, okay, Sandman is cool with Peter throughout the first bit of the movie. He even helps Peter stop Electro. Great. And I mean that introduction. It's me, your friend, Flint Marko, aka Sandman from 2007 Spider-Man 3, remember? Great stuff. And then Marko gets trapped in the cage, seems a little confused, but gets over it. He goes with the rest of the villains to Happy's safe house and waits around. He is polite. He does not seem to have a problem with losing his powers. It is all good. But then Norman Osborn goes all Green Goblin, gives a big speech that amounts to, actually, we have superpowers, so we should be able to do whatever we want. Octavius, who is at this point cured, tries to stop Osborn but is hit by Electro. Doc Ock is out. Electro is on board. He's been very apprehensive about losing his powers since the beginning. Lizard isn't even in the apartment, and he's all lizard angry, so whatever. He's down to beat up Spider-Man. But then there's Sandman, Flint Marko, who just leaves. And you kind of figure he'd been on Peter's side since the beginning. There's no good reason for Flint to go bad. None. He is entirely motivated by a desire to protect his daughter. She is not in this universe. If anything, Flint should be itching to return to his universe. But for reasons I don't understand, Flint joins the bad guys off screen and helps them try to kill the Spider-Man. And I get it. It makes for a cooler fight. And having Sandman on the good guy side would level the stakes. But it goes against everything in this movie and Spider-Man 3. So I have a suggestion. One scene that can exist in your head that would explain this issue away. Where would it go? Right around where everyone's working in the lab. Okay, here we go. Goblin is flying around on his glider. chasing a trail of sand down an alleyway. He screams, "Marco! Marco!" Sandman reforms and yells, "What do you want? It's not about what I want. It's what you want. You want to help me. Why would I help you?" "Because if you don't help me, those kids send us back. I'm going to kill Spider-Man, and then I'm going to find you, and I'm going to kill everyone you love. Maybe a wife, son, a daughter." Flint gets mad but calms down. "If you get sent back, he's just going to kill you again." "Maybe. Are you willing to take that chance?" Flint grunts angrily. "What do you want me to do?" All of the villains appear in the alleyway. Lizard, Electro, and Doc Ock, who's working with Goblin at this moment. We don't know if his regulator fried again or what, but he's with them. And they all pose like villains as Goblin descends on the glider in front of the group. Says, "Take a wild guess." And scene. Here is why I prefer that bit. And I know, does the movie absolutely need it? No, clearly, it's great. But I do think the movie could use some justification for Sandman working with Osborn, since everything leading up to that moment should put Sandman either on Spider-Man's team or neutral. And with this scene, we get to see Osborn as a leader. He seems to organize the Sinister Six off screen. Yes, I know there aren't 6 of them, although how is there not a scene where J. Jonah Jameson names the group the Sinister Six and paints Spider-Man as the 6th member? Osborn also really isn't part of the fight until the very end, so at least here, Osborn's presence is felt in the finale. Sandman is only part of the battle because of Osborn. Now that I think about it, were the Sinister Five even a thing in this movie? Like, sure, Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Electro, Lizard, and Sandman all showed up to the fight around the same time and were sort of after the same things, but was there any organization between them? It seems like the first 3, Electro, Lizard, and Sandman, all just managed to get to the Statue of Liberty within a minute or so of each other, even though one can fly, one can teleport over short distances, and the other is just a big ol' lizard man. Then Dr. Octopus also managed to make it to the island by swimming or taking a ferry, or maybe he did that thing from the video game where you can grab on the helicopter and just sort of skitch your way to the statue. But it doesn't seem like there was any coordination between the villains. Electro didn't know Doc Ock was coming. And then last on the scene is the character who rides a glider that, according to Marvel.com, is capable of reaching speeds up to 90 miles per hour. And if you want to be generous, you could say that Osborn was biding his time until the box came into view, and once he was sure it was there, Goblin made his move since he's the fastest besides Electro. But since we have these 5 villains all here, why not clearly organize them a little bit? Have a leader and a plan, which should force the Spider-Men to work together since their enemies are all on the same page, and that makes their enemies way more effective. Also, when I threw this video up on Patreon, patreon.com/NOVmovies, Patreon's a great way to support the channel if you're thinking about a way to do that. Also, but the bookmarks are selling well, I appreciate that. So a few of you brought up the idea that Flint is there to get the box so that he can go home to his daughter. However, this is the exact exchange. Sandman catches Peter 1, says, "Where's the box, Peter?" Tom Holland says, "Flint, we can help you." Then Sandman says, "I don't care," and just starts beating up Tom Holland. Then Electro says, "Sad to tell you, Sandman, nobody's going home." So they don't seem to be on the same page, but after the exchange, Sandman just starts working with Electro and Lizard to kill the Spider-Men. It's very muddled. I gotta be honest, this is really all I'd change. So much of the rest of the movie works so well, because it's really, 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 really good. And even though Spider-Man 3 is not my favorite Spider-Man movie, Sandman deserved better. By the way, if you're like me, when this movie ended, your first thought was, well, what are they going to do now? Obviously, Tom Holland has a future as Spider-Man if he wants it, but what happens to Andrew Garfield? What happens to Tobey Maguire? And I wanted to brainstorm that a little bit in kind of a freeform segment, so I'm putting that as the Nebula Plus bit on this video, so there's an extra, 5 minutes of me just discussing what I think they're going to do with those franchises. Here's a little sneak peek. I kind of like it if Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man does not have an MJ. I don't love the idea that they all meet, then he goes back to his universe and finds Mary Jane Watson, and then it's just like, you are for me. I do think Black Cat will show up somewhere, and I'd love to see her here, because I think their relationship is interesting. And if you want to watch the extended version of this video, get access to videos early, not have to watch ads, you should definitely sign up for Nebula. It's a creator-owned subscription streaming service that I helped to create. All my content is on there. Some of it has bonus Nebula Plus content. If the timestamp on the video has a little white box with that plus sign, that means it's Nebula Plus. So go watch that. You get more video than you get on YouTube. It's a very good deal. And speaking of good deals, we at Nebula have partnered with this video's sponsor, CuriosityStream, for a bundle that gets you a year of CuriosityStream's high-quality documentaries, like one I watched recently called The Secret Life of Your Clothes, which is about what happens to clothes after they're donated. It follows clothes from the UK over to Ghana and talks about the impact of that. It's very interesting. Now here's the deal. We at Nebula have created a bundle with CuriosityStream so you can get a year of Nebula and a year of CuriosityStream for less than $12. Not $12 a month, $12 for the whole year. Just go to curiositystream.com/NandoVMovies. As always, huge thank you to everybody that supports the channel on Patreon. Thank you to everybody who listens to the podcast, mostly Nitpicking, and everyone that follows me on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, TikTok, all those platforms. I'm NandoVMovies. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.